Welcome to Light It Up, a podcast about resilient women balancing motherhood, their careers, personal lives, and all of the challenges that come along with being a superwoman. Each week, you'll be motivated to take action to lead, inspire, transform, and empower. Now, here's your host, Dr. Aginah Musherah. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Light It Up. I am your host, Dr. Aginah Musherah. I'm so excited about today's episode because I have found three guests who are all the way from the West Coast, sunny LA, Pasadena, all of those wonderful warm cities that I'm not privy to live in. But I have three men who are the distinguished gentlemen of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Dr. Ernest Black, who is the system-wide director for Cal State Teach program. And I also have Mr. Randy McKenzie, who we go back quite a long ways. He's originally from Chicago, but decided to leave us for sunny California. And Randy is a human resources professional who works in leadership development. And then I also have Sergeant Detective, you'll correct me.
Detective 3 is fine.
Detective 3.
Detective 3.
DeShon Andrews who's with the LAPD. And today we are going to touch upon a very important topic. You all know that mentorship and education, of course, is very important to me. And I want to expand the conversation to talk to three men who work with our youth and focus on the importance of developing men, because that is very important, particularly for our community. So I want to take this time to welcome these three men to Light It Up. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having
us be here today.
Wonderful. So let's, before we kind of get into the conversation, I kind of, gave a very brief introduction as to who you all are. I'd like to start, I guess, with you, Dr. Black, since you are working in higher education. And before we actually started, we kind of touched upon the fact that we have some commonalities in the fact that we oversee teacher preparation programs. So can you just tell the audience just a little bit about your work at Cal State?
So I have multiple jobs there, as I'm sure you do, as I'm sure everybody on this call does, because we do everything. And I don't know about you, but since the pandemic and the racial marches last summer, they added everything Black onto your plate. Did that happen to you too?
Of course, that's the way it always goes in higher ed.
I'll start with what I get paid for, and then we'll venture out into the rest of it. So my job is the system-wide director for Cal State Teacher Preparation Program, which is an online CSU statewide program. So we cover everything within this great state of California. So that's the basics of it. In addition, my job is now to make sure that the entire CSU system, which is 23 campuses, increases the numbers of Black men in their programs. So I'm overseeing that initiative as well, as far as an overall diversification of the teacher preparation program and leading in some of the transformation centers that we're establishing across the CSU.
That's a tremendous feat that you have there.
Mm-hmm. Can I also add that they didn't add any more to my paycheck?
Sure, you can. I know how that is.
I just wanted to throw that out there just in case they may see this.
Well, we need to talk to the folks at Cal State.
Exactly.
And Mr. Randy McKenzie.
Hi, how's everybody doing out there? Randy McKenzie. I'm with Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Professionally, I am a human resource manager for a chain of fine cuisine Mexican restaurants. I do everything human resources, including leadership development and training for the new managers with their orientation, sexual harassment, discrimination training for the company to get people to help people get certified. I handle payroll, benefits, you investigations, you hiring and firing, pretty much. I do it all. Um, in the fraternity, I worked for years with both these gentlemen with our on a local level with the mentorship program. I'm also a mentor. I've had a mentee since 2015 with a big brother, big sister. He's now a senior and about to graduate, and he has several college acceptance letters. So we're just trying to figure out which one he's going to accept, and of course, it's going to be the one that offers him the most money.
Mhm.
And whether he or his parents, like it or not, unless they're going to pay for it, which I doubt. And then I also work with the 100 Black Men of America, the Los Angeles chapter. I'm a mentor with them, and then I also work with their Pathways to Entrepreneurship program, where I'm a lead instructor.
Perfect. All right. And Detective Andrews.
My name is DeShon Andrews. Professionally, I'm a Detective 3 for the Los Angeles Police Department, entering my 25th year. Right now, I'm the supervisor over white collar crimes over West Bureau, which I guess since you guys in Chicago, that would be Beverly Hills and things of that nature. Well, all the people with the money, Hollywood, the people that get on your nerves when they call,
Mhm.
white collar crime, credit card fraud, identity theft, things of that nature. Um, Prior to that, I worked the Force Investigation Division that handled officer involved shootings. I worked homicide, robbery, abuse, child unit, auto theft. So just about everything um, in detective work, I've either been on a unit or supervised the unit. Um, on patrol, my passion in mentoring started when I was 19 years old. I coached my first travel basketball team. It was the Carson Yellow Jackets. Um, and I've been a coach in the city of Carson, which is in Los Angeles, since I was 19. Um, Last year was my last year because my, I'm thinking it's my last year because my youngest child is now in high school.
Mhm.
So, I'm tired of looking at other people's children. That's a joke, but so as far as coaching is concerned, that's where it stopped. But I still am very involved in the mentoring program with our fraternity, the Alpha Esquires.
Mhm.
Picked up Dr. Black passed that baton to me roughly around 8 years ago, uh, roughly around 8 years ago. And I'm just now transitioning out of that role to teach somebody else how to run the program, how to connect with students. Because something he said to me back then, uh, I'm 50 years old.
Mhm.
My connection is starting to with these kids. We need fresh young blood. So now I'm mentoring a 21-year-old to take the baton from me. So, when I was on patrol, I ran the Jeopardy program with our police department, and that was dealing with children at risk, and started a program that they're still using with that program. It's called Read It, Write It, Define It.
Mhm.
And when we went through the frontward and backwards through the dictionary, I said, "You guys, we're gonna start A. Give me a word, and it better not be at, or it better not be B. It better be some word that you don't understand. Write it, define it, and let's use it in the Senate." So there's a lot the that, and I'm also an adjunct professor at in the LA Community College District. I teach administration of justice. So there's a lot to unpack, and I'm quite sure it'll all come out through the course of this interview.
Mhm.
And I'm glad to be here, and you know to assist my brothers and give a little knowledge. So
Thank you. I appreciate that. So let me start off by asking the three of you, since you all are very heavily involved with mentorship. Um, can you think about your first experience with being mentored? Did you, when you were in high school, college, what have you, any of you have mentors?
I can go first. I did it actually not realizing that it started with me with the being in a Boy Scout troop. They actually let me in at like 11 years old, even though I was too young. And just to give you is all black troop on the south side of Chicago, in an all black church in Chatham neighborhood. So if you're from Chicago, you know what that represents historically. Um, so Scoutmaster was armed security for the Chancellor Northwestern University. His adult leaders were um, uh, plainclothes. I think he had reached detective with Chicago PD. Another one was a veteran from the United States Army, from a Vietnam War veteran. Another one was a Navy veteran. Uh, so I came up being mentored by black men who were, who understood the value of discipline and developing leaders. And that's by the time I got to high school, I was already used to um, being involved, in some type of leadership role with groups of my peers as well as adults. I learned how to, deal with adults as well, and that later on, helped me as I matriculated from my teenage years into my adult life.
Okay. And do you think that your mentoring experience, that of being mentored by, some pretty positive black men, shaped your desire to give back and to serve as a mentor?
Absolutely. One of the things that when I attained the rank of Eagle Scout, that I was told by the adult leaders and some of the Eagle Scouts that were the older boys that had, like, they were college age now. Um, when I first started, they said you have a responsibility to not only the troop but to our community and to our people. You have to pay it forward. So everything that was done for you when you get old enough, Randy, you have to put yourself in a position in life where you can pay it forward and help lift other young people up. And that's what I've been trying to do, all my adult life.
Okay. And Detective Andrews.
Well, growing up in the city of Carson. We had a strong Parks and Recreation program, and the men that mentored me were my coaches. They were the men that I looked up to. They were the men who provided discipline. They were role models. They were educators. One had just recently passed. His name was Chad Brown. He was a lead official in the NFL. He was, one of the first black. He may have been the first black to do a Super Bowl. So, and my high school basketball coach, and I still talk to these men on a daily basis. They're, I'm 51 years old, and so they're, 70s, and I still lean on them from time to time and ask them for guidance. But because they used to always, it's one thing that they used to always tell me, when I was 12, 13 years, I've already been 12,
Mm-hmm.
so I know where you're heading. And they're in their 70s now, so they're things that I'm experiencing now that they've already experienced. So their influence on me, I knew I had to give back, and I gave back to the same places they did in Parks and Recreation. And that's when I began coaching at the age of 19. And just recently, I received, about a year ago, I received a text from a kid that was on my first basketball team. And his text messages like that what I'm about to tell you,
Mm-hmm.
it's all the reward. It's why you do it. He said, "Coach, I appreciate you." And I said, "Man, you doing fine, man." I said, "The only thing," I said, "you don't listen to me because you became an Omega. So why you thanking me for mentoring you?" And so we went back and forth about that for a minute. But then he said, "No, you don't understand. Um, you had just you were in college. Uh, the boys in the neighborhood had just jumped me in the gang, and you turned the corner in your 5.0, and you always had on fly sweatsuits. You were still young." And I said, and I looked at them and I looked at you, and I said, "What do I want to be? Standing up on this corner drinking 40s, or be going to college driving a convertible 5.0 and the license plate says stay black? Do I want to be him you know, or do I want to be them? And now he's assistant principal at Lusinga High School. And so to get that text message now, this many years later, it lets me know that the lessons that were passed on to me, given to me, were passed on to the next generation. And I attribute that to the men that mentored me, because as the Bible says, a man's wealth, you can't tell his wealth until you look at his grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's not, so I take pride in the fact that the lessons that they taught me permeated to the next generation. And hopefully, and now he's coaching. So now those lessons that were taught to me, they're going to go 3 generations. And so that, to me, is the power of mentoring, is when you pour in and you provide a positive role model to children that they just don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And for him to look at me, because I'm coaching in the basketball, I'm coaching in the park, looking at the hill with the gangbangers. I had no idea that kids on top of the hill had came down and scooped him up. But he chose to stay with me, and he was terrible. But I put him on every travel ball team, and he said something. He told me, he said, you know, you used to run a full court press, and you told me, and you said, we're gonna press, press, press. We're gonna rotate. We're gonna press until we break their spirit, till they break that other team's spirits, and then we're gonna, overcome this obstacle. And he said, Coach, and he still calls me Coach. He said, Coach, I've been on a full court press with my life ever since, full pressure ever since. So those are the moments that, they mean something to me. I'm getting a little choked up in the throat because there's others, kids at UCLA said every time that they were faced with obstacles, they would say, what would Coach do right now? So it's important. Mentoring is important.
Absolutely. And Dr. Black.
I get this question from time to time, and I really want to say somebody's name,
Okay.
but I don't have any.
Okay.
So I'm from Detroit, not saying that there are no role models in Detroit, because there are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying I didn't have any. So I knew the kind of man I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured out what I needed to do to get there. Then I started going there. So when I try to talk to other people who are either where I started or on that journey, I can tell them everything to do that's wrong, because I've made every single wrong mistake. Everyone. Trust me. But I can also tell them, hey, if you turn here, things will be different for you. Or if you do this, things will be, and the fact that I didn't have a role model, so I was kind of going at this on my own, makes my mentoring style probably different than people who were mentored themselves.
Okay. And it's interesting that you raised the fact that you did not have a mentor, because I will tell you that that was, in a sense, my experience. I mean, I'm sure growing up, I had people that I could talk to, but in terms
Right.
of having someone directly that I considered to be a mentor, I did not have that, which actually caused me to serve as a mentor to others. And particularly, it was that experience as a professional that caused me to, make sure I find opportunities to mentor, particularly young women who, were trying to navigate the space of transitioning from higher ed into a professional working environment. Now, Dr. Black, you, based upon your professional area of expertise and the fact that you've been charged with increasing the number of Black men who enter into teacher preparation programs,
Right.
can you just kind of talk about why is it important for us to have Black men in the classrooms? I mean, we know that as it stands, Black men are roughly about maybe 1%, if that.
Between 1% and 2%, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
in the teaching profession. So why is it important to have Black men in the classroom?
I also want to point out that there are probably about 6% of all teachers are Black women, and
Mhm.
that number is dwindling.
Right.
So we have less and less Black people becoming teachers than ever before.
Right.
I just need to point that out too.
Absolutely.
So why is it important? It's on the surface, on the simplicity of it, we need them as role models in the classroom. We need someone to show this third grader that yes, you can live here and you can get here and you can do this and you can become who you're meant to be. That's just on the basic level of it. But the bigger piece is we know that Black students do better academically when they have Black teachers. Black boys do better academically when they have a Black male teacher. We know that just 1 year, just having a Black male teacher for grade 3, for example, that young boy is more in tune to getting to and going to college than if he had had no Black teachers or no Black male teachers. So when we talk about that mentoring aspect, that's just a small piece of it.
Mhm.
The bigger piece is the trajectory, the quality of life for that Black student just by having a Black teacher or a Black male teacher in particular for Black boys and Black girls too. When I taught middle school, I had more, and I got to give a shout out to all the Black dads out there who are putting in that work. When I taught middle school, it's somewhere around that if you have children, if you know how they act in middle school, they're horrible.
Mhm.
And so think of having classrooms of them. So I had more students in middle school who live with their dads
Wow.
than their moms, right? Primarily because they got on the mom's nerves, I'm sure, at that point. But the point is, so you're able to communicate with that dad. You're able to say, okay, this is what we need to do here for this child. Because as a teacher, as a classroom teacher, every child is individual. They come to school with their own story. They're not trapped in your story. Your job is not just to say 1 + 2 is 3. Your job is to say, okay, what's the best way to get you to 3?
Mhm.
So when you have a parent and you can work with that parent, going back to being a Black male teacher, when you can work with that parent in a way that helps that student, then everybody flourishes. The parent is happy, you're happy, the child is happy, everybody's flourishing. We know that the cornerstone of American life is education. Everything starts and ends there. So your enjoyment of education or your lack of education kind of dictates your trajectory in American life. So that Black male is kind of integral to that part of American life. Um, what we do in those spaces is basically how that child or how that teacher will end up. So if we respect that, then the child will grow.
Mhm.
When we don't respect that, then the child doesn't grow.
So, what do you think? Because as I'm listening to you, full transparency, I'm
Mhm.
I'm a divorced mother of 3. I have a
Okay.
set of twins who
Ooh.
are juniors, boy and a girl, 16 years old, and my youngest, she is in 8th grade. And I am the parent who establishes a firm foundation from the very beginning that education is of utmost importance. Um, and I also take the time at the beginning of each school year to send a personal email to each one of my children's teachers. So that's roughly 21 teachers if you're factoring in 7
Right.
class periods. And I introduce myself first to establish the foundation that this is who I am. Here's what you need to know about my child. Don't hesitate to call. Don't wait to call until there's an issue, which I don't anticipate that there should be one, because if they want to continue to live in my house, then they know what the requirements are. But I have found that the teachers appreciate that, because we're not having a conversation once there's an issue. But I was also surprised at the number of parents, and I don't know why I was surprised by this, but the number of parents who don't try to initiate a relationship with, you know, the teachers. It's almost as if, as a society, as a nation, we believe that it's a teacher's sole responsibility to educate our children, and that there's not really a partnership involved. You know what I mean? Um, what advice or recommendations can you give the people who are tuning in terms of, I guess, forming a relationship with the educators who, are working with your children for 6 to 7 hours a day?
So, first of all, I have to say that you do that because of your own intrinsic self.
Mm-hmm.
So, you didn't have a role model. You're doing all this stuff, right? So
Right.
that's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
I also went to school on the first day, but a little differently,
Mm-hmm.
because I recognize, being a teacher, that most teachers, even the Black ones, felt like Black students didn't have a dad at home. And I wanted them to know that they did have a dad at home,
Mm-hmm.
and what they were going to do, about that. And I've had teachers talk to me out of pocket. So I'm kind of closing in on how we become a partner thing. So when you come to school as a teacher with your own beliefs, your own prejudices, then there's an issue with becoming my partner,
Mm-hmm.
because we both need to put something into this partnership. Partnership isn't one way. So if I reach out to you, as you did with your children's teachers, and say, hi, I'm a parent, I'm an educator, I'm this, I'm that, I'd like to partner with you. If I get back, just help them with their homework, that's not a partnership.
Right.
My job is more than just to help them with their homework. So we have to, I think, for many parents, they're going to have to kind of walk the teacher through what a partnership will look like with them.
Got it. Perfect.
We can't allow one side to dictate what the partnership looks like.
DeShon, you had something that you wanted to kind of land back on in terms of the point that Dr. Black was making.
Yes, I just wanted to piggyback off of what Dr. Black was saying by speaking on my own personal experience. And so, I have 3 sons.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's another reason that I got into the mentoring, 3 young Black men. And my first child was when he was in, and I took the same approach Dr. Black did. Hey, I'm here, educated, involved Black dad, LAPD, whatever you want me to do, I'm here. Establish that partnership. And it seemed to put the teachers at ease, but some teachers weren't receptive. Now, my first child, they tried to tell me that he was special needs.
Mm-hmm.
They tried to fast track. They wanted to track him. They wanted to put him on medication. And my second child, and I told them no. And they said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to take him out of your school. That's what I'm going to do, because I see that we're going to have a problem. They did the same thing with my second child. My third child, they told me he had ADD. And each time, after trying to advocate for my child, things didn't seem to be going the way I wanted them to. So I moved him. Now, the first child, the one that was supposed to be special needs, he's receiving his master's in civil engineering next month.
Wow.
The second child, the one that they said had all these anger management issues, couldn't learn, all these issues, he just received his bachelor's degree in biology from Hampton, and he's on his way to dental school. The third child that they said was ADD, he's almost fluent in French and is in his 3rd year of Mandarin. So I tell people all the time, every time we have these, and Dr. Black knows, at the beginning of every season with the Esquires, we meet with the parents, and that's one of the topics. You have to be an advocate for your children, because it's not like it used to be when we were growing up, and also to piggyback off of something he said, all my years of school, I remember 3 teachers. Okay, I remember Dr. Martin, who was my principal at elementary school. Okay, and I remember Miss Wheeler, who was my science teacher, and I remembered Dr. Hester, who was also a science teacher. All 3 of them were Black. I could not tell you who any of my other teachers were, and seeing them in those positions made me know that it was possible. So, I do not remember any of my other teachers.
And so the fact that you point out what you had to do to advocate for your sons, I also talk to parents about the importance of being your child's advocate. And that's something that I definitely have done and continue to do, particularly in my situation with having a son and a daughter who are, twins. So I actually look at how they attempt to set my daughter up for success and keep my son stagnant. Both my son and daughter academically are on the same level. And just this past, so when they were sophomores, give you a really quick story, they, for the first 2 years of high school, had the same English teacher, same class period. The teacher had no idea that they were related, didn't know they were twins until I showed up for the parent-teacher conferences, despite the fact that I sent this email beforehand. Long story short, in preparation for recommending them for their levels for their junior year, my son had a high average B in the honors English class. And we all typically, most Black males, English is not necessarily the subject of choice. They may, lean towards math or science or what have you. And my daughter had a B, but her percentage was lower than her brother's. My daughter was recommended for AP English for this year, and my son was not. However, everyone at the school, the teacher, the counselor, the department chair received an email from me because I needed for them to explain, how do you take 2 Black children, one who's a Black male who has a higher average than his sister, and you recommend him for the honors level course and you recommend her for the AP course. So I've had to constantly advocate to make sure that my son was not placed in certain levels where they wanted him to be, or when teachers try to say, well, I thought it would be easier for him to, take this. No, that's not your position to make that determination.
When my son was in high school, he played high school basketball, and I was trying to get him into AP level courses, and the school, and it was a private school, and the school they were not returning my emails all of a sudden until I showed up to tell him I was taking him out of the school. I said, I pay on time. I deserve to get a prompt response. They said, well, Mr., what's the problem? I said, my kid is not being placed in AP courses. The coach is in there. And they said, why are you fighting so hard for your child to be in these courses? And I said, junior college is an option. You're trying to make it his only choice. Right. I don't care less about him dribbling the basketball. I said, he can dribble a basketball at this other school that I got him enrolled in, and all his courses are AP. And he can do the work. So I was like, no, that's not happening. So once again, being an advocate for your student.
Right. Dr. Black, you wanted to?
Yeah, I just want to add, it's very difficult for a lot of parents to be an advocate for their children in the space of school. Many of our parents, many Black parents, have spent their entire school lives hating it for various reasons. And we can get into that in a different podcast. But, it's very difficult to ask them now to go back and either partner with the teacher or advocate for their students. I very often say we try to get parents to help us, but they were in a system that undereducated them, that's also undereducating their children. So they don't know what is the best way to help their child navigate this. So they rely very heavily on the school to do it, but they don't trust the school to do it because of what they did to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very difficult. When you have parents who have been teachers, for example, they know exactly what to say.
Right.
And very often do. So for those of us who have taught school, we very often will write down. I used to write down for my sister, say this.
Mm-hmm.
When you go into the principal's office, say that, read it from the paper.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to be on speaker? Because I can be on speaker. So it's very, difficult. And that's where that role model piece is kind of really influential, because you're helping parents. And when we speak of role models, we very often speak about youth.
Right.
But that's not where being a role model ends, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely for those of us in higher ed, for example, which is extremely white. Even at an HBCU, you're like, where did all these white people come from as the dean?
Yeah.
And so, we have to try to help our brothers and sisters who have a doctorate in whatever specialty navigate that system. Because if you ever tried to get into higher ed, it's extremely hard.
Yes.
And,
I know.
There's very little turnover.
Right.
But once you get in, you're like, oh, I can see why there's no turnover. They're not millionaires in there, but it's a good life.
Right. Don't tell the secrets now.
Right. But what I'm saying is, we all need some sort of mentoring.
Yes.
No matter what phase we're in, especially when you're the only Black person there, that you're the only male there, you're the only 45-year-old there, you're the only, where you don't have anyone to talk to in those spaces.
Mm-hmm. Right. So let's touch upon, because in mentioning how, DeShon, you had to advocate for, your sons. How does that also, in terms of the educational system, we know that there is currently, there is still that school to prison pipeline. So let's kind of touch upon the importance in reducing that school to prison pipeline, and what the three of you all do with Esquire, as far as working not only with the youth, but as you mentioned, working with the parents to, provide them with recommendations and tips on advocating and helping their children.
Okay, so as Dr. Black had just mentioned, a lot of parents, they don't have the trust, especially with the demographic that we deal with. They don't have the trust or the skill set. And that was the beauty of the Alpha Esquires, because you have to have a skill set to be in the leadership positions of the Esquires. You have to be a Dr. Black. You have to be a Dr. Reginald Stewart. You have to be a Reginald Sample, a Dr. Taquan Stewart. You have to be someone who, when those students get in a jam, that can go say, no, 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 this kid has background. You have to be a Detective Andrews that says, no, you're not going to suspend this kid. And he has resources. You're not going to attract this kid because he has resources. So a part of our program, since I've taken over, is to to end that pipeline from high school to prison, and that's by not allowing kids to be suspended for things that others aren't. It start getting those things in their cumes. You don't know how many times I've been up to to Crenshaw High School, Dorsey High School, where kids were about to be suspended or put out of class or put into adult school. And just by having a conversation, first the conversation was with me, the detective, saying that, you know, this kid did this, that, these things. Don't put him out. He's part of an organization, and sometimes that didn't work. So then, what they didn't know, and I would give them a business card that said Alpha Esquires, but they didn't do the research. They didn't know that the next call was going to be from Dr. Reginald Sample, who was supervisor over that district. Mm-hmm. So, but see, and the beauty of our program and preventing that is that we have people to be the stopgap when we recognize these injustices that are taking place with our children, not being able to be placed in the AP classes when they're deserving, basically being groomed to be laborers instead of leaders.
Right.
Okay. Right. And so, or putting on a track to be suspended or getting these things in their cume. So the next defense, they're going to be suspended. Now they're labeled as the bad kid. It happened with my child where I told the school when he was in elementary school that they didn't have enough supervision. Okay. And my son was getting bullied on the yard. So I went and told him, I said, you guys need some more supervision. You guys, or you need to shut that area down for after school program. Oh, this program is for the kids, the parents who don't have resources. I said, that's fine, but there still needs to be more supervision. Well, my son got to the point where he was tired of being bullied. So he and his god brother beat up the bully. They tried to suspend my child. Okay. And Dr. Black, if there was incidents with his child where now you got the school police coming up there trying to interview and trying to do all these things because parents don't know their rights. And I was like, nope, you're going to stop talking to that kid right now because I see what's going on. And then they said, who are you? I said, well, I'm Detective 3, DeShon Andrews, Los Angeles Police Department, that also supervises juvenile division. So you're going to stop talking to this kid right now until his parent gets there, until his advocate gets there. Because the kid doesn't know anything. He sees you as a primary role model, and he's just going to tell you everything, and he shouldn't be telling you anything.
Right.
And so I've been down that road where you have to get in there and to protect that kid from the system that's supposed to be educating and elevating them. So it's things like that we need more programs to advocate for our children. They need to be more readily accessible. And ours is free of charge. A lot of these programs, kids are priced out of them. So what difference does it make because there are many programs for the poor, and the wealthy can afford it.
Right.
But what do you do to that middle to lower class child who's just on the fringe of not being able to have these services? And that's where the most damage is being done.
Right.
That's where the damage is being done. And our program gets in there. You got the law enforcement aspect. You have the, excuse me, very powerful educators who work within that system. And that has been the most gratifying. A kid that got, this kid was a straight A student, and he had an airsoft gun, right? And he told it, his mother, his father bought it for him. His mother says, you can't have this in my house. So of course we got two parents living in two different homes. Father purchased the airsoft gun because he thought it was cool. Mother, who's in Esquires, said, get that thing out of my house. Kid went to school. Okay. Said, hey, I got this airsoft gun I got to get rid of. My mom said, who wants it? Kid said, hey, I'll buy it. He brings the gun to school the next day. They tried to expel him. Kick him out of the school district. Kid had never been in trouble. Okay. So imagine the adverse effects that could have had on the rest of his career in academia if someone like me didn't come down and said, no, sir. and brought Reggie and said he made a mistake. Well, it's cut and dry. I said, no, 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 no. There's always an exception.
Right.
And they kept the kid in school, and he's in the 11th grade now, and he's thriving. He continued to thrive. But that one incident could have turned his life around forever.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the type of things that we do.
Gotcha.
And if I could just dovetail off of what everybody else said really quick, Dr. Muhammad, you know, we have all these black organizations. We have the fraternities, we have the sororities, you got the NAACP, you got the Urban League, 100, Prince Hall Masonry. You got a lot of organizations that are doing a lot of things. Um, and what we have to learn how to do as a people with these organizations is network. So what you've heard just in this, part of the conversation is that, between just the three of us, as well as there's a plethora of other people. I mean, I mean, we can't even, we name drop, we would suck up the rest of the time on this Zoom. But and that's just within our fraternity. We ain't even talked about like our network with the Kappas, the Qs, the AKs, the Deltas, the Sigmas, the Zetas, the SG Rows, where we know people. I mean, like Dr. Black helped me with something with one of my mentees who got in trouble, who was about to get kicked, basically about to get kicked out of the school district on like a sexual assault charge that would have been like false and way overblown, but he gave me the language and understanding to give a script to his mother to talk to the vice principal at the high school he was supposed to matriculate to from the middle school, and got that vice principal to vouch for him, and that's how he was able to stay. And he's got at least 3 college acceptance letters, one of them giving a 50% scholarship. Um, so but the parents need to understand too that you have to seek these things out, like the Alpha Esquires, the mentorship with the 100 Black men. I mean, we're not a business. We don't do like marketing and promotion, right? Which is something that we probably need to work on. True enough, especially the utilization, the underutilization of social media by these organizations, but the parents have to, seek these things out as well. So you have to, look for these things, and as those that are in education or in law enforcement, you know, there should be this partnership, but between the two, where the educator is bringing in these different organizations, is bringing in law enforcement, but not just any law enforcement like Detective Andrews, who does mentorship and knows how to work with children, and uses athletics and things like that to steer young people in the right direction. And that's what it's all about. The whole thing, it takes a village to raise your child, African proverb and stuff, that's real. And we're long overdue as a people to not properly and aggressively utilize that African proverb.
Yeah.
We gotta stop doing this. And parents have to understand that it's all right to you provide for your child and you do the best you can, but you still got to work and everything. It's okay to get some help, and there are those of us that are out here that will volunteer to help you. you know
I wanted to ask you, Randy, because you do serve you, as an instructor, mentor. I'm just curious, what has been, I guess, your greatest reward from with doing this work?
Right now, my two greatest rewards on the with my mentee in Big Brother Big Sister, seeing him go from being an immature adolescent that had the potential but wasn't getting the grades that he should have got in middle school, to basically maintaining a 3 point over a 3.0 consistently while playing football, while getting on varsity in the middle of his sophomore year. Like we had a whole conversation one night about that, where he almost quit football. And I said, no, you're not going to quit football. You're going to do what it takes to achieve this goal. I had to remind him, you know, uh, people don't plan to fail; they fail to plan.
Mhm.
And quitters, winners never quit, and quitters never wins. Type of thing. And I just told him, if you leave this, you can do this, but there's you're a teenager now. There's repercussions and consequences. Here are the potential repercussions and consequences of your actions. Now you can choose to go that route, or you can do something else. I'm gonna give you something else, but you at the end of the day, you're gonna make this choice. You know, I'm gonna be here if you make the what I consider the right choice or what I consider the wrong choice. I'll still be there for you, but just understand, I'm not gonna make you do anything. You're not a child anymore. You know, and so he got that and was able to move up. And then my other thing is just the work I've been doing with the 100 with the Pathways program, watching those students go from having no idea what it is what business concepts were, entrepreneurship or anything, to entering regional and national competitions and
Mhm.
winning money, putting in the work, taking business ideas that they had for that based on their passions and seeing it as something that's profitable, to the point where some of them are in college now and are like, you know, kind of like creating a trying to create a sidebar revenue stream off of like the hair care product they created or the skincare product that they created in their dorm room. Right?
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
and selling it, and because that's the entrepreneurial spirit. You create it yourself. You start small, and you just kind of build from there. Like and because success is all based on a cascade effect. But you got to drop that first pebble in the water to create the cascade.
So, I when I bring guests onto the to light it up, oftentimes I'm asking questions and getting information not only for my audience, but of course for myself.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you all this question. Um, because we know the importance of having a Black male figure, not only in a young Black man's life, but also in young Black girls' lives. Um, what I guess words of wisdom or recommendation can you give to my listeners who maybe they're a divorced, or have never been married to their children's father, and they have teenagers, and their teens, oftentimes children don't listen to what their parents say. It's always receptive coming from someone else, right? Most often than not. What advice can you give to those who are listening, um, in terms of putting their children in front of the right individuals who can, impress upon them the importance of networking, getting an education? I sing this song all day long with my three children. With my son, he's listening. I realize he's listening to what I say, but I have to use reverse psychology with him. Um, a case in point, he's in the Project Lead the Way program. It's a part of 100 Black Men. And I've been, I placed him on the track, on the engineering track. Right now, there's this battle about whether or not he's going to finish his capstone course, because in his mind he wants to go computer science, so he wants to take these courses senior year of high school. And apparently I don't work in higher education, so I don't know what I'm talking about here. What advice can you give, when parents are in those types of situations where they have children who may not necessarily be receptive to the path that they're trying to guide them on?
Yeah.
What do
So
we do?
I guess I'll go first. So speaking from the standpoint of a mentor, and an instructor. You want to partner with that teacher, with that mentor, with that coach, and you want to basically tag team it. So in other words, the parents with mentees have come who I have their children as mentees have come to me and said, you know, Mr. McKenzie, I want Tyrone or Ricky to do this or that, because I've been talking to him about it. I say, okay, well, what have you said? Well, I've said these things. Okay, so I take what they said, and you know, I just figure out how to change it up to and present it in a way where A, I don't sound like I'm regurgitating his parents, and B, that, you know, I'm saying the same thing that his mama's telling him, but because I have as the mentor, I have a different relationship than I do with the parents. He's more willing to listen to me, because the way I have to come to him is not the way that you come at your children as parents. I cannot be judgmental. I cannot be overbearing. I have to listen to him. I can't, you know, say things like that's dumb, that's foolish, that's stupid. You know how many times I got to tell you, none of those types of things can come out of my mouth or even enter my mind, right? You know, I have to interact with him a certain kind of way to guide him in the right direction. So if you want your child who's a mentee with a mentor to be guided in the right direction, and I feel like teachers, you know, they wear like at least 3 hats, right? You wear the hat of a teacher, you wear the hat of a mentor, and you kind of wear the hat of a social worker, because you have to be cognizant of what's going on in their personal life. Are they getting enough food to eat? Are they getting enough sleep? If not, why? What type of trauma are they going through in their household that you know, on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday they're the greatest students, but on Thursday, you know, they're going off because Wednesday night somebody comes at home and abuses them. You know, you have to be cognizant of those things to be able to understand why there's a change up on the Thursday class. You know, to the point where you're about to send them down to the principal's office to be suspended or something, or be reprimanded, when really he or she's just going through something, and they just need somebody to talk to, not more so than they need to be reprimanded. And it's hard.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to being a mentor is hard. This isn't difficult. And you know, but you as the parent, to stay on topic with your question, you want to partner with the other person, the mentor, the teacher, to be able to do that. And if that mentor, if that teacher is not willing or able to do that, as you heard from Dr. Black and Detective Andrews, you need to take your child out that program, out that school, and go somewhere where there's a team of people who are willing to bring your son or your daughter to the highest level of their abilities.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well,
The church say amen.
Or you do like my mama used to do and just go there and threaten the teachers, but you know, I don't know how that works nowadays. So.
Oh, it works.
Okay. Just check.
Yeah, you got to be skilled at it in a certain way.
And I'll whoop you and get you fired. You know, that can be a motivation. I don't know. You know,
So before we wind down, I want to go on record now to ask you all, if I invite you back again, would you come back?
No.
We'll work it out. I'm gonna.
Yes, I will come back. Yeah.
I was gonna say I'm gonna assume that no, Detective Andrews was really a yes. And thank you, Dr.
but can I piggyback off your just briefly? You know, what do you do if you have a child that's if you're not communicating? First and foremost, beat them. You know, that's how you get them to listen. No, but just
I have a. Oh, I shouldn't say that. Never mind.
No, I'm just joking. I'm just
the record
joking.
button is still on.
I know.
People out there in YouTube land or wherever this is gonna be, these just jokes. Okay,
we're joking.
But what I had to do in that situation was find out what my child was interested in,
Mm-hmm.
and funnel him or give him someone who had that skill set. Like I said, I'm a detective. I got a child that's going into dentistry and one that's going into engineering. Okay, that's not any, it's not of my doing. And
Yeah.
you and we have to not be scared to allow others to speak into the lives of our children. Okay, just like Randy said earlier, it takes a village. A part of the Esquires program, the first thing we do is we have the kids write down what their interests are. Okay, and then once they write down what their interests are, we find someone within the organization to link up with that child. That's very important because there's no uh there's no cure for all ails. You can't just throw one thing out there and expect for the kids to latch on to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so I would advise the parents to seek out these organizations, talk to the people in the organization. Don't just you have to advocate for your child there as well.
Yeah.
You
And
just
be
can't
involved. Be
Right. You just
involved.
can't be like, yeah. You just can't be like, well, I gave my son to these black men. He should be okay.
Right.
No, we need to know a little bit about your child, establish the relationship, and then we'll funnel them in the right direction. And
Yeah.
then if it's not working out for you, take your child out of that program.
Right. That's the one thing that I really appreciate about 100 Black Men, the Chicago chapter here, is that there
Mhm.
were opportunities for parents to get involved. And when I
Mhm.
got my son involved, you know, I I'm more of a hands-on parent. So I wasn't his very first meeting, I didn't just drop him off and leave. I asked, is it okay if I stay? Because I wanted to hear, you know, what they were sharing. And then I stepped back, but I just wanted them to know that, you know, I'm going to be involved as well. So we were able to participate in community service projects together. There was always an opportunity for a parent to be involved in some way. Um, and then of course there are sometimes those people who just want the organizations to do all of the
Mhm.
work. So I definitely think it's important to stress that we have to be involved as well. All right, so before we wrap up, because I do have one last question for you gentlemen, I do want to give you, Dr. Black, an opportunity to have a little final word.
So we were all talking about mentorship and how parents get involved or not involved and how teachers should be involved in those things. Ideally, if the mentor, the parent, the teacher, they would all work together, ideally. They all know that child from three different vantage points. And it would be helpful if they kind of communicated what they knew to help the child. But the one thing we need to remember is that mentorship is not punishment. And very often when parents
Mhm.
come to you, it's because their child has done something. They're going to get kicked out of school. They got kicked out of school. They were caught doing something. So suddenly they need this mentor. The child's not going to change because you got this mentor for him at age 15. Mentoring is just that. It's not changing your personality. It's providing you with additional resources, additional assistance. But you are who you are.
Mhm.
And if that's who you're going to be, then go be that. But you can't threaten a child with, I'm going to send you to the Boy Scouts if you don't start acting right, which is what parents very often do.
All right.
So we have to be clear on that. And you have to be open to being mentored.
So, in other words, we also need to be proactive and not reactive when it comes to
Correct.
mentorship. And
Correct.
that's a very good point because I think you're absolutely right there. Oftentimes it will mentorship comes along or we seek out mentorship for our children if we're trying to correct an issue.
Right.
Being proactive. So that's a very good point. Um, so I want to kind of do something that I don't typically ask this question of men, but I'm going to ask you gentlemen this question. and hopefully, um, you know, you'll answer. What would you tell your younger self? And I don't know who wants to answer that question first. Don't all speak.
I can answer that.
Okay.
Depending on the age, because I clearly knew everything about everything by the time I was 16, like most 16-year-olds do. So after 16, you couldn't tell me anything anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So mentoring would not have worked for me after 16.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would tell myself I would say to my younger self, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. Don't sweat it. Everything will work out the way it's supposed to work out. Don't sweat it. Go ahead and do. In fact, you may want to do a bit more because you kind of holding back a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and you could be a whole lot greater than you allow yourself to be if you would just let go a little bit.
All right. Detective Andrews, Mr. McKenzie, either one of you?
I would probably tell my younger self that nothing worth having is easy,
Mm.
because there was a lot of times where when I was younger,
Mm-hmm.
if the path seemed too difficult, then I would choose the easier path.
Mm-hmm.
And as an adult, I I don't know when the light came on, but the harder the path, the harder I fought. The worst thing you could tell me was I can't. That's why I became a detective. That's why I became a police officer, because somebody said I can't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they'll never let you on the police department. Hmm. I made detective after 4 years on the job, 6 years on the job. You'll never make it to the rank of detective three. It normally takes, you know, 15 years, 16 years to make detective three. Do you think somebody's gonna let you command a whole division or a whole unit? I made it in 11 years. So I think if I had I'm not, and by no means, because I think I'm where I'm supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
because every testimony has a test. So I think I'm exactly where I need to be. But I probably would have told my younger self there's a few times I think if I had to just pushed a little harder, you know. But I don't regret any of it, because when my sons have come to that point in their life, I was there to tell them just push a little harder. Just push a little harder. It's about to break. Your break is coming. Just push a little harder. So I have no regrets, but that's the one thing I probably would have told my younger self.
Okay. And last but certainly not least, Randy.
So I have to tell myself in three different stages of my development. So in elementary school, I would have told my younger self to you accept the fact that you're going to have to work twice as hard to keep up with the smart kids, and that you're not dumb. You can do this, and that there's this whole world that smart kids experience that the non-smart kids do not, and you really want to be a part of that world. I would tell my high school self to follow your heart and your dreams, not the crowd and other people's opinion. And I would tell my college um, level self to follow your passions when you choose a major or career, not follow the money.
It's good advice. All right. Well, I think on that note, um, it's a perfect way to end this segment. But of course, you all do have an invitation to return, and we can kind of elaborate on some of the um, topics that we touched upon today. So I do want to thank you for taking time out of your day to chat with me on Light It Up. And as I always tell my guests, to remember to continue to light it up and shine bright like a diamond.
All right. I like that.
Thanks for joining me this week on Light It Up. Make sure you visit my website at www.lightituppodcast.com or www.aginahmuhammad.com. You can also find me on social media using the handle @LightItUpPodcast. If you like what you've heard, please be sure to hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, I'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or you can simply tell a friend about the show. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday for a new episode. Until next time, light it up and shine bright like a diamond.